Welcome to the arena where losers learn the language of gods and goats. You thought taking the L meant surrender. Oh no, my friend. That L was your first syllable, the rough draft of a dialect so potent, it only speaks to those who've stared into the abyss and taught it how to scream. You took the L, the loss, the failure, the whispered, not enough, and turned it into a tongue so rare, so unforgiving, that only the divine and the greatest ever born can comprehend it. This isn't just about winning anymore. This is about rewriting the rules, bending reality until it breaks, and forcing the world to listen in a language forged in pain, rage, and relentless hunger. The world loves to label losers. They slap that L on your chest like it's a tattoo, a permanent marker of your worthlessness. But what if that L was the blueprint? What if the L wasn't the end, but the beginning of a brutal evolution? Losing isn't the crime. The real offense is letting that loss define you. When you let the L consume your identity, you become a prisoner. But when you repurpose that L, when you speak it in a dialect of gods, you become a liberator, a destroyer, a force that shatters illusions. See, the language of losers is simple. It's filled with apologies, excuses, and broken dreams. The language of gods and goats. It's a symphony of scars, of chaos turned into art, of silence, screaming louder than words ever could. This is psychological warfare at its purest. While the world talks about bouncing back, the true warriors absorb the fall, make it their foundation, and rise so high that the air itself becomes rarefied and lethal. You learned manipulation, not as a tool for petty gains, but as a weapon to rewrite your story. Every slight, every betrayal, every snide remark was just a word in the dictionary of your transformation. You mastered the art of control, not through brute force, but through calculated chaos. Your rise was never a straight line. It was a series of strategic collapses and rebirths, each one louder than the last, until your enemies were drowning in their own confusion, unable to predict or contain the storm you became. Philosophy isn't just dusty books and empty words. It's the battlefield where revenge is crafted with precision. You learned that revenge isn't about violence or shouting. It's about timing, patience, and inevitability. Revenge is a language spoken fluently only by those who've been pushed to the edge and decided to redraw the map of existence. You took your defeat and turned it into a strategy, a silent promise whispered in the darkness. You will pay, not with noise or fury, but with the slow, cold certainty of a master tactician. Chaos, they say, is the enemy of order. But you became chaos incarnate. Not mindless destruction, but the kind that births new realities, new empires built on the ruins of the old. You didn't just break the mold. You shattered it so completely that the pieces were unrecognizable. In that destruction, you found clarity. In that madness, you found control. The chaos you wielded was a language that demanded attention, respect, and fear. And here's the secret. The gods and the greatest don't speak the language of victory. They speak the language of overcoming. The real language is written in the ink of scars, in the grammar of survival, and in the vocabulary of domination. It's not about how many times you fell. It's about how many times you stood, transformed, and spoke louder than ever before. You've walked through the valley of your own failures and emerged not just alive, but speaking a dialect so rare It silences all who hear it. This language has no room for weakness, only for power disguised in subtlety, for vengeance wrapped in velvet, for madness mastered and made your own. It's the language that turns pain into poetry, loss into legacy. As you listen to this, know that you're not alone in this dark symphony. Many have tried to learn this tongue, but few have mastered it. It requires the kind of resilience that shatters bones without breaking spirits, the kind of vision that sees opportunity in every wound, the kind of cunning that turns enemies into pawns. This language isn't taught. It's born in the fire of your own trials. The world around you will try to drown this voice out. It will tell you to forget the L, to erase the memory of your failures. But you know better. You understand that the L was the first letter in the dictionary of your ascendance. It's the seed of your revolution, the spark in your dark universe. Every god and every goat has their own L, their own story of falling and rising in a language only they speak. Now, you do too. This isn't a fairy tale. There's no magic wand here, no sudden miracle. This is cold, calculated transformation. It's the kind of power that makes you invisible to those who don't understand, but utterly unavoidable to those who do. The language you now speak is a threat and a promise. A promise that the next time the world tries to write your story, you will be the one holding the pen. The battlefield of your mind is the most dangerous arena of all. Here, you negotiate with shadows, converse with demons, and broker peace with chaos. This is where your language was born, through late nights of questioning, through moments of unbearable solitude, through the relentless pursuit of meaning in the midst of madness. The language you speak now is the dialect of survival and supremacy, the tongue of those who've transcended ordinary pain to craft extraordinary power. So what does this language sound like? It's not a roar or a scream. It's a whisper that bends steel, a silence that breaks minds. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows their own worth, the unshakable calm of a predator waiting for the perfect moment. It's the words unsaid, the threats unspoken, the victories not yet claimed. It's a language that disarms with a glance, that conquers with a breath, that enslaves with a thought. This is your language now, the one born from your L, forged in your darkest hours and spoken only by those who refuse to be broken. It's a language that defies definition because it exists beyond fear and failure, beyond shame and surrender. It's the language of gods and goats because it requires divinity and greatness to even utter it. And now, as you stand on the edge of this new world you've created, know this: speaking this language isn't the end. It's the beginning of a war that's as much internal as it is external. The true challenge isn't just mastering this tongue. It's using it to dismantle the systems, the minds, and the realities that tried to bury you. The real victory comes from becoming the living embodiment of that language. Unstoppable, undeniable, and unforgettable. So what comes next? How do you move forward once you've spoken the unspeakable? Once you've risen from the ashes of your own defeat? The answer is in the next chapter of this story. The one where your enemies realize that the language you speak isn't just a symbol of survival, but a declaration of dominion, where your rise becomes their fall, and every whispered L becomes a roar that echoes through the corridors of power. Stay with me, because the real journey is just beginning. The language of gods and goats is more than words. It's a revolution in motion, a storm gathering strength, and a darkness that consumes everything unworthy. And you, the speaker of this language, are the harbinger of that chaos and creation, both. And so, the storm gathers, unseen but inevitable. The language you speak, born from your L, ripples through the shadows like a poison mist, subtle yet deadly. They can neither hear nor see it until it's too late, because this language isn't loud, it's surgical. It's the slow crawl of a spider's web wrapping around the mind, the whisper that makes kings tremble behind their gilded thrones. When you mastered your own downfall, you became fluent in the dialect of chaos, the dialect that turns every failure into a step forward and every scar into a story weaponized. Your enemies thought they buried you beneath their derision, their silence, their disregard. But what they didn't understand is that soil was fertile. The deeper you sank, the stronger your roots grew. You weren't just surviving, you were evolving. You began to speak in a language so incomprehensible to those who never fell, so foreign to those who never bled, that it became your greatest weapon. It's a language where pain translates into power, where every loss becomes a lesson, every scar a seal of sovereignty. This language is coded in subtle manipulations and relentless strategies. It is the art of bending reality without ever breaking the surface. To the untrained eye, you seem calm, almost passive. But inside, a war rages, fought in the silent spaces between words, in the pauses heavy with meaning, in the calculated gaze that sees more than it reveals. This language isn't screamed from rooftops. It's whispered into ears of the unwary and etched into the minds of the doubtful. It's a virus of doubt and inevitability, spreading in the bloodstream of those who once sought to destroy you. Jever, Rise Your Crafting isn't just about reclaiming what was lost. It's about redefining the battlefield itself. Your victory will be no accident, no mere happenstance of fate. It will be a deliberate conquest, a philosophical revolution. You've learned that true power lies not in brute force, but in perception, controlling what others believe, shaping reality through subtle manipulation, and wielding chaos as a scalpel rather than a hammer. You're a maestro conducting a symphony of shadows, a puppeteer pulling the strings behind the curtain of order. Each move calculated, each word a chess piece, advancing toward checkmate. Your manipulation is not petty or trivial. It's an elegant dance of minds, a dark poetry of influence. You don't break your opponents. You dismantle them piece by piece until they are left gasping in the ruins of their own arrogance. This is the nature of philosophical revenge. It's not about retaliation in the traditional sense. It's about making your enemies question their very existence, unraveling their certainty until they're lost in a labyrinth of their own doubts. Revenge is a slow burn, a long game. It's a shadow creeping through their lives, a reminder that every action they took to break you only built the prison they now inhabit. You don't just respond to their cruelty. You elevate it, twist it into something they never expected, a mirror reflecting their own failures. And while they scramble to understand the new dialect you speak, you continue to rise. Slow, deliberate, unstoppable. Your ascent is marked not by flashy displays or empty victories, but by quiet domination. The chaos you wield is controlled, precise, and terrifying because it emerges from a place of deep understanding. You know the terrain of your mind and theirs better than anyone. You use this knowledge like a map in a dark forest, guiding you toward inevitable triumph. The psychological warfare you engage in is a battlefield where words are weapons, silence is a strategy, and every glance is a threat. You don't just fight with fists or fury. You fight with intellect, with patience, with the kind of cold calculation that makes you untouchable. Your mind is a fortress, impenetrable and labyrinthine, and inside it, you speak a language only the truly powerful can learn. It's a language where every thought is a command, every plan a manifesto of destruction disguised as creation. Your enemies, blinded by their arrogance, stumble through this maze, trying to decode a dialect they can't comprehend. They see your calm and mistake it for weakness. They hear your silence and interpret it as surrender. But you are neither weak nor defeated. You are the storm before the calm, the darkness before the dawn. You are the embodiment of a truth they cannot accept, that losing once was never your end. It was your genesis. Philosophy becomes your armor and your sword. You study the nature of power, of control, of influence. You understand that true revenge is more than just payback. It's transformation. It's becoming something they fear, something they cannot predict or control. It's rewriting the rules so thoroughly that they're forced to play by your terms. The L you took wasn't a sentence. It was a comma, a pause before the most devastating paragraph of your life. Chaos, that raw and untamed force, is no longer your enemy. It is your ally, your partner in this dance of darkness. But you don't surrender to it blindly. You master it. You channel it into a language so refined, so sophisticated, that it reshapes the world around you. You don't just create disorder. You create new orders from the wreckage. The chaos is your canvas, and you are the artist painting a masterpiece of power and inevitability. Your rise is the ultimate manipulation, not just of people, but of reality itself. You make your enemies question what is real, what is possible, and what is their fate. Your presence becomes a psychological weapon, a constant reminder that the language of gods and goats is spoken not with noise, but with intent. You are the unseen force that shifts the balance, the dark whisper that unsettles the strongest minds, the shadow that blots out the brightest lights. This language, born from the ashes of your loss, is a dialect of dominance. It demands respect without asking for it. It commands loyalty without seeking approval. It terrifies without the need for threats. This is the true power of speaking in a tongue only the divine and the greatest understand. It's not about proving anything to the world. It's about proving to yourself that you are beyond their reach, beyond their judgment, beyond their understanding. And as you speak this language, you realize something profound. You are no longer just a survivor. You are a creator, a destroyer, a ruler of shadows and silence. The L you took was never a limit. It was your liberation. You've turned loss into language, failure into philosophy, pain into power. This is your revolution, your awakening, your rise. But the journey is far from over. This language you speak, this dialect of gods and goats, it demands constant mastery. It requires you to remain vigilant, to stay one step ahead in the endless game of psychological warfare. Because those who once doubted you will not rest. They will seek to understand, to replicate, to destroy what they cannot control. Your rise, therefore, must be relentless, your control absolute. You will continue to manipulate, to weave chaos into order, to speak in this language that only the most powerful know. You will dismantle their illusions, expose their weaknesses, and rewrite their destinies. This is not just revenge, it is revolution, a revolution that begins within you and radiates outward, reshaping everything it touches. And so, as the storm finally breaks, as the language you forged becomes an undeniable force, remember this. Speaking this dialect is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your reign. Your enemies may try to learn your language, but they will never master it. Only you, the speaker born from loss and forged in fire, hold the true power of the gods and the goats. Now prepare yourself for the final chapter. The chapter where this language transforms from whisper to roar, from strategy to unstoppable force. The chapter where you become not just a speaker, but the very embodiment of this new world you've created. The chapter where the L you took becomes the legend they will never forget. This final chapter isn't about noise or spectacle. It's about inevitability. When you speak, the air itself changes, bending to your will. Your words are no longer mere signals. They are seismic shifts, tectonic movements in the landscape of existence. You don't ask for power, you embody it. The language you wield is a code written in dominance, a dialect decipherable only by those who have glimpsed the abyss and returned unbroken. They thought your fall was final, a full stop at the end of your story. But you rewrote that narrative with a fluency that leaves them gasping, struggling to keep pace. This is no longer about revenge. It's about transcendence. You are beyond their petty games and their hollow judgments. Your rise was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving yourself right. That the L you took was never your defeat, but your destiny. In this new world you command, chaos bows to your rhythm. The storm you once weathered is now your symphony. You conduct with precision, each move deliberate, each silence a calculated strike. Your enemies scramble, trying to decode your language, but it slips through their fingers like smoke, intangible, elusive, yet everywhere. You have become the shadow in their peripheral vision, the chill down their spine, the certainty that their grip on reality is slipping. Philosophical revenge, at this stage, is no longer about destruction. It is creation. You create a new order, built on the ruins of old grudges and forgotten promises. You are the architect of a world where weakness is punished, where resilience is revered, and where the language of loss is spoken fluently and proudly. This is your domain now, a realm where every syllable you utter reshapes fate itself. The manipulation you mastered is no longer a tool, but a language spoken fluently in every gesture, every glance, every calculated pause. You don't manipulate because you must. You manipulate because it is who you are. The greatest minds understand that control is not about domination, but about perception. You have become the master illusionist, bending reality so skillfully that your adversaries doubt their own senses, their own judgments. They fall into your web willingly, tangled in the brilliance of your strategy. Dark humor, that sharp edge of your psyche, now serves as a veil for your true intent. The world sees your calm smirk, the subtle irony in your voice, but beneath that surface lies a mind honed for psychological warfare. Your laughter is not a release, it's a warning. It's the sound of a storm gathering, a tempest ready to engulf all who dared to dismiss you. This humor is the salt rubbed into wounds, the reminder that you are unbreakable because you have already been broken and rebuilt stronger. Your rise culminates in the ultimate revelation that power is not seized, it is claimed through understanding. You have claimed yours by speaking a language only the gods and the goats can comprehend. You have become a legend not by brute force, but by mastering the art of becoming unknowable, untouchable, unstoppable. Your enemies look on in disbelief, trapped by the very tactics they once used against you. Now they see the truth. Every L was a lesson, every setback a setup for your greatest triumph. You took the language of failure and translated it into a lexicon of kings. You speak in dialects of dominance, fluency born of fire and struggle, and it echoes across the halls of power. Your story becomes a myth, whispered in fearful reverence, an epic of transformation that no one dares to challenge. But remember, this language demands vigilance. The crown you wear is heavy with responsibility. To speak this language is to live, constantly on the edge, always a step ahead, always calculating, always ready to shift the game. The gods and the goats don't rest, and neither can you. Your reign is not static. It is a living, breathing force that must be nurtured, sharpened, evolved. And so, the final act unfolds, not with a bang, but with a steady, unstoppable rise. You don't just break their expectations, you shatter them. The very foundation of their world trembles under the weight of your new dialect. They try to fight back, to claw their way out of the shadows you cast. But you have become the shadow itself. The darkness that once threatened to consume you is now the cloak you wear with pride. Your enemy's greatest mistake was underestimating the power of an L taken and turned into language. They failed to see that every loss is a seed of revolution, every defeat a step toward mastery. You have cultivated those seeds into a forest so dense, so impenetrable, that even the brightest light cannot penetrate. This forest is your sanctuary and your battleground, your language and your legacy. As you stand now at the apex of this journey, understand this. You are not just a survivor or a victor. You are a force of nature, a living embodiment of the dialect only gods and goats can speak. Your rise is not the end. It is the beginning of a new era, an era defined by those who, like you, took their losses and translated them into power, who speak in tongues forged from pain and triumph alike. So speak loudly, speak boldly, and speak with the weight of everything you've endured. Let the world listen and tremble, because you didn't just take the L, you turned it into a language, and now that language rules